Hello, everyone, and welcome to this talk about building bridges. We're going to be talking about how you can unleash your company's creative potential through integrated ecosystems. I'm your guide, Kristina. And I was worried earlier when Erwin showed his face that my face wouldn't be big enough, so I'm hoping that I win the big face competition today. So a little bit of metadata about me. I have been working in digital asset management and creative technologies for the past 10 years. I'm an independent consultant, and I help companies to select, implement, and optimize the best technology for their creative operations. I also help with all sorts of things around the people, the process, the technology, and the metadata or the data around our technologies as well. I've worked with lots of clients across all sorts of industries. And I also have the privilege of teaching courses in digital asset management through a university in the US called Rutgers University. And I also teach some of my own courses in DAM and change management. So in our world today, creativity and technology often meet. But we find that there's still a gap between these two things. And there's a gap, a bridge that we need to build between creativity and the technology that we use to manage our creative operations. Our creative technologies are like islands, where we go to do different tasks, but they are so isolated that we struggle to move assets and data from one island to another. And the challenge is that we have so many different isolated islands of innovation. And we find that a typical creative process in most organizations, from small to large, includes somewhere between 10 to 50 creative technologies. That's a lot of technologies to connect and a lot of islands that we have. And when we start thinking about the implications and the inefficiencies that we have when we're trying to move assets and data between all of these islands, you can really start to add up the costs, the extra time it takes, and the duplication that we're getting when we live on these little islands here. So the question we need to consider is, if our assets and our data cannot swim between these islands, how are we going to connect our workflows? So the key, as you might have guessed from the title, to unlocking creative potential is to build bridges to connect these islands and allow assets and data to flow freely. Now, I live in London, where the first known bridge was built by the Romans across the River Thames around 50 AD. It was a wooden structure, maybe it looked a little bit like this, and it served as part of the Roman road network. And it allowed the Romans to move people, to move livestock, and to start building trade in London across the river. This bridge made it effectively the crossroads of trade in the UK, which meant the Romans had power and they had control of that trade. It's on the same site of what is now London Bridge. And much like bridges, integrations between our technologies allow us to create powerful, critical links to more easily move assets and data from one side to the other. All an integration is a simple connector. Now, there are many benefits of transforming your content operations from lots of standalone islands into a powerful, creative, integrated technology ecosystem. And here are just a few. We can centralize assets. We can build bridges to improve collaboration among our teams. We can streamline content workflows and add in automation. We can eliminate silos and manual steps, and we can enhance the context and insights that we can gather from our assets and from our data. So my clients often ask me, okay, which technologies should we integrate to make this flow work better? And the first thing I say is, let's start by looking at your technology stack. Which technologies are you using? And let's consider what are going to be the most valuable connections that we can make between these different technologies to achieve the most benefit. So we have lots of tools, as you've seen from Teresa and Roger as well. Lots of presentations today about all of the different tools that we have. So we have our data tools like ERP and PIM. We have our workflow tools. We have our production and post-processing tools. We have our creative automation tools. Then we also have storage management and collaboration tools. And here we have our DAM and our CRM. And then, of course, we have the tools where we deliver all of our content. So our website, our CMS, our print channels, our social media channels, email marketing, e-commerce platforms, our sales enablement platform. And ultimately, we also probably have one or multiple tools that helps us to measure how effective our marketing content is. And then we're also going to sprinkle a little bit of AI magic on top of that. And now we find that most of our tools also have some element of native AI. But remember, if it's not natively built into the tool, it's another island. It's another piece of technology that's not connected to the rest of the ecosystem. So let's build some bridges and see where we can go with this. For many organizations, their work in progress and finalized assets are currently spread across many different locations. This is an age-old story. You probably still have some of this going on in your organizations. There are assets on SharePoint. There are assets on John's desktop. There are assets on the video freelancer's hard drive because they were too big to send over. We've got assets on email attachments and WeTransfer. But if we can centralize these assets into several different systems, then we can store our in-progress assets in the workflow tool, we can store our finalized assets in the DAM, and we can store our asset variants in Chili Publish. And the outcomes of doing just this centralization is huge. I've had the privilege of helping many companies over the last 10 years to simplify and centralize millions of assets, which helps them to ensure that everyone across the organization is accessing the right content in the right place. It enables brand consistency, easier search, and most importantly, asset reuse, which means you're not recreating these assets and spending a lot of money recreating stuff that already exists. Now, if we take this same triangle of integrations, we can also see that it can help us to improve our content workflows. Now, you may be creating hundreds, if not thousands, of asset variants in Chili, but perhaps you want to run some of those through a review and approval workflow. So to do that, we might want to link up Chili with our workflow tool. And I think we just saw that from Ramon. Thank you. I think that was a great example to show that actually let's connect these two tools together. We also find that linking the DAM to Chili, as we've heard from many people already, means that we can manage our assets and get those selected assets from the DAM onto our variants. And there's a lot of interesting debate going on right now about should we also reconnect and create a two-way integration between DAM and Chili Publish, which would then allow us to perhaps store some or all of our variants that we create in Chili back into the DAM for future reuse or inspiration. Now, for the creative agencies that I work with, as well as brands that have their own in-house creative teams, they often want to facilitate more collaboration between their designers and their non-designers. So to do this, we're going to keep this two-way integration between Chili Publish and DAM. And that's where we're going to store all of our different variants and versions. And then, of course, we want to connect our design tools. And we've already heard that Chili already integrates the InDesign and Adobe Illustrator directly with their tool, which is fantastic, and I think Photoshop is coming next, which we love to hear. So there's already a connector built there, and that makes it really easy for your designers to continue working in the tools that they love and they prefer to use. And then once the assets or the templates are completed, they can easily move those into Chili Publish, and from there, your non-designers can use that system. Now, retailers and e-commerce companies like Lego, Adidas, and Procter & Gamble also want to make sure that new products or tiny little product changes reach their customers when they're shopping online. Now, my retail clients have been able to streamline their content workflows by integrating the whole product supply chain from end to end. So you can probably already guess what some of these tools are going to be. So if we take, for example, a shampoo bottle, I feel like every time I go into the shop to buy shampoo, the same shampoo looks different. And that's because retailers are constantly improving the product, they're changing the packaging, maybe they have a new ingredient, they've made some change, they have to add something, a disclaimer to it to make sure that everyone knows what's in it. So there's a lot of changes going on constantly. So to make this process faster and easier, we can start by integrating PIM, the Product Information Management System, with our DAM. And then we can integrate the DAM with Chili again to update content at scale for the different retailers. So you've got Carrefour and Amazon, they want different formats. So we find that often there's not enough variation in the assets that we have in the DAM. So having that attachment to Chili Publish is fantastic because it means we can create lots of different variants for our different retailers. And then we can connect Chili Publish directly to our e-commerce platforms, directly to our retailers, and directly to our distributors so that we can make sure that the assets get to the right places very, very quickly. I'm currently working with an engineering and manufacturing client who is considering exactly this chain of integrations. And this will save them weeks of time in their workflow. And it's also going to mean that their end customer is seeing the right product in the shops, on the online shop, and in their catalogs. Now, many companies are thinking about how to localize content at scale, of course. And some companies are now turning to AI tools. I'm sorry, I had to say AI. And of course, there's lots and lots of different AI tools that we can integrate. Like I said, if the AI tool itself is not natively integrated into your current systems, then it's another island. And so we need to think about how we can integrate that as well. So if we imagine an advertising agency who wants to translate all of their content into 50 different languages for their different markets, how can they do this at scale? Well, they can use their DAM to hold all of their modular content, and they can perhaps use an AI translation tool. And I say perhaps, please be careful with this, because I think this can be quite dangerous. I've had some issues before with translating things incorrectly, and I do hope that that is actually the correct French for "Are you thirsty?" Is anyone? Is it correct? Yes? All right. Good. We're not saying anything embarrassing there. That's good. All right. So we can integrate these two tools to Chili Publish. And voila, this is going to enable us to rapidly adapt our campaigns for all of our international markets and for the local markets as well. And because these integrations eliminate the friction of manual handoffs and leverage AI and automation, it can actually reduce your workflow time by up to 50%. Another target of many of our companies is to be able to personalize content. So let's say, for example, if a shoe retailer that is sending me an advertisement and they know that I like hiking, I expect to see the content on the left, while another person who likes high heels might expect to see the content on the right. And by linking our customer data wherever you store it, right? So you have to find those sources of data, whether it's your CRM, maybe it's your CDP, maybe it's something else, where you store your customer preference information. We can link that up to the DAM, and again, link that to Chili Publish. And then from there, we can deliver this content in all these different languages and different formats to all of our customers directly. And finally, our last benefit of integration is that we can extract useful insights that are going to help us understand what is going on with our content and feed that back into our content strategy. So for example, if we want to know if our banner ads are performing better than our social media videos, and whether we're actually getting that return on investment when we create these assets. Firstly, again, you've got to find the data. So let's say we've got all of our creative finance data in one place. We can link that database to the DAM. And now you suddenly understand how much did it cost us to create this asset? And how much did it cost us to create this massive campaign? And so you can assign this data directly to your assets. And then we can link DAM to our delivery channels. And Gary, print and QR codes need to be on here as well. And then we can also link our delivery channels and all of that data that comes back from how did our customers engage with this content. We can link that back into our analysis tools. Perhaps you have a business intelligence tool that you can use to analyze the performance of each of your assets. And this could be an integration, but in many cases, if we don't need that data to be synchronized all the time, we can also manually kind of export data into our data lakes or our business intelligence tools, and we'll be able to do that, as I understand, with Chili Publish when the new Insights module comes out. And finally, from this data, we might be able to learn that, hang on, where are we? Is it going? There we go. All right, it's advancing quicker here. Let's go back. There we go. So from this information, we might be able to learn that, in fact, our banner ads are not really that effective, but what is effective are our social media videos. So now when we go back to our leadership team and we say, hey, we want some more budget to create this new social media video campaign, we have the data to back that up, and we have proof that that is going to be a more effective use of our content budget, and it's going to help us with our content strategy. So there are a lot of great things that we can do with integrations, but of course, as with so many things in life, integrations are a little bit more difficult than just drawing a line between two different systems. There's a lot of challenges that we face. Recently, repair crews in London have been working on another bridge called Millennium Bridge. And this bridge crosses the Thames River as well. Because of an ancient law in London, they have had to dangle a bale of straw to warn oncoming boats that they're doing work on this bridge. It's a really simple, non-technical warning that there's a potential risk here. We have to watch out for this. So when we think about the potential risks and challenges that we face when we do integrations, when we're building any bridges, there are a few things to keep an eye out for. So, a couple things to start with. So we have the limitations of our legacy systems. When you think about all those tools, not all of them are going to be new. It means we have some systems that maybe don't have APIs. They might not have direct connectors. They might be difficult to connect to, even if you have a very good system integrator that's helping you create those integrations. I actually have a large retail client right now who is replacing their dam, and they have a very old PIM, and we're having this interesting discussion to say, well, if you're going to get a new dam, do you want to integrate it immediately with your old PIM, or do you want to wait to create that integration until your new PIM is implemented as well? And it's an interesting conundrum, and I don't think that there's a right or wrong answer, but it's something to consider for every organization. Then, I know I've been speaking a lot about technology, and I love nothing more than talking about change management and the importance of getting people on board. And so there's a lot here we could talk about, but remember that the technology is only as good as the people who are using it. So we need to get people to use this new integration. We need to do testing, we need to do communications, have a change management plan and an implementation plan. Make sure that there's ongoing training and support to enable the best value and the most value from this integration. Also, when we're building integrations, we're often building in business rules and business logic into these integrations. So take, for example, if you have an asset and it's only going to be published to your UK social media site if it is labeled with the term UK. You've built that into the integration as a business rule. Now you have a user that comes along and enters United Kingdom, and then the integration breaks, because that business logic doesn't apply to the term United Kingdom. So remember to align on the standards and make sure that everyone is doing things in a consistent way. And then finally, integrations, unfortunately, are not a once-and-done kind of task. They require ongoing maintenance. And this is especially important if your vendors, like we love our vendors, are constantly releasing new functionality and new tools that we can use within their systems. But that, as well as if we change our own data models, can break an integration. So we need to make sure that we include planning and budget to continually maintain those integrations. In the 1800s, livestock was transported across the London Bridge along with pedestrians and carts. It was loud, and the city noises scared the sheep. So farmers would hire a sheep driver or a shepherd to lead the herd safely across the bridge. And this event is still celebrated every year in London, and I just think it's the best thing. But much like these sheep, and the sheep drivers that are crossing the bridge, we can use best practice to guide our integration safely forward. We can choose to integrate any tools, but we need to be strategic and plan in order to choose the right integrations to drive real return on investment. So a few tips if you're getting started with integrations and starting that planning process. I recommend starting with identifying your use cases and goals. Make sure you really understand the why. Why are we doing this? What problems are we trying to solve? And to prioritize that. You may have a lot of different use cases, but you can only do certain ones at certain times, so create a plan for that. Document your workflows and your pain points. Always go back to that pain point and say, are we solving that pain point with this integration? Select the appropriate build method. There's lots of ways that you can build these bridges. You can use APIs and system integrators. You can use iPaaS middleware like Zapier, MuleSoft, Workato. Or, if we're lucky enough, Chili Publish and others have started to create their own bespoke connectors or pre-built plugins that we can also use. But there are pros and cons to each of those methods, so really worth thinking about which one's best to get the most value out of that integration. And then, of course, make sure to have a phased roadmap and to plan out your return on investment measurements and how you're going to measure that as you go along. And throughout this all, guide your sheep across the bridge. Get your stakeholders aligned on each of the requirements, and don't forget that some of your most important stakeholders are your executive team. You'll want to be really clear with the executive leadership about which use cases you've identified, how they align with the company's strategic objectives, and also to communicate that phased roadmap with them and how you're going to measure return on investment. So let's talk a little bit about what it means to measure integration success. Now, to illustrate the importance of this phase, I want to share one last story with you about London Bridge. In the early 1960s, officials in England discovered that London Bridge was, in fact, falling down. And they decided that it was impossible to renovate it, so they needed to tear it down because they needed to build a new bridge that was car-friendly. Of course, we had lots of cars by that point. And one business-savvy counselor said, hey, before we tear it down, why don't we try to sell it? And sure enough, in 1968, an American tycoon bought London Bridge for about $2.5 million at the time. And that bridge has now been moved to the desert in Arizona, where it still stands, and I believe it's still being used. But rumor has it that as he was buying London Bridge, he actually thought he was buying Tower Bridge, which is the much fancier bridge just next door. Can you imagine how upset your leadership would be if you bought the wrong bridge? And one of the reasons that we measure success and have KPIs and OKRs, whatever you want to call them, is so that we can measure if our integrations are not just functional, but are they bringing value back to the organization? So measuring integration outcomes is key to securing that leadership buy-in. And I recommend having quarterly or biannual updates with your executive steering committee and tell them how it's going. Give them the measurements of success. The more results they can see, the more likely they are to help budget and fund your next integration, because there will always be another one. So we can engage our executives with measurements about return on investment. So how much time and cost savings did we have? We can look at usage. There we go. Usage, so how much has this integration been used? What's the adoption rate? How many sheep are there on it? What's the volume of assets or data that's moving across our bridge? We can also think about the quality. So how accurate is the integration? Is it reliably sending the assets and the data in the right direction at the right times? And we can also consider the business impact. So has this integration actually brought us value? Has it made us faster to market? Has it enabled personalization and localization? What has it actually done for us? So I want to leave you with 3 key takeaways today. Firstly, don't let your technology be an island. Make sure to guide your sheep across each bridge, be the shepherd, and choose and plan to build your bridges very carefully. Thank you so much for joining me today, and thank you, of course, to Chili Publish. If you have any questions about integrations, come and talk to me later. Thank you.